Hey everybody, welcome to availability for Travers Family Head Football Coach Justin Wilcox. We'll go ahead and take questions in the chat and we'll get started once we have those. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started with Jeff Brado.
Justin, can you give us an update on kind of where things stand with the quarterback position? You didn't have Ben in practice a lot last week. I presume he might be back. And is Fernando in the mix at all? And just kind of where things stand going into this week.
Ben is back and practicing. He was cleared late last week. And so he's practicing, was out there yesterday and today. And Fernando is in the mix, and we'll evaluate it throughout the week.
Okay, we'll move on to the second question. We'll go to Steve Kroner from the San Francisco Chronicle.
Justin, what impresses you the most about Oregon State?
Well, they do a really good job up there. Jonathan and his staff they're fine coaches, and then they got some real good players. They play very physical football. Offensively, they're we'll get in big groupings. They obviously have a great tailback. They're really good at O-line, the speed at receiver, and those guys are also elite returners, show up. The quarterback's doing a good job for them. Defensively, again, very physical. There's some similar things, 4-down nickel versus broken sets. Their interior guys and edge players are making a lot of plays in the backfield. And then secondary is very aggressive. They're going to get up and challenge you in routes at corner in the slot. So they do a really good job. And then, as I mentioned before, the special teams and the return game, that's a weapon for them. The punt return, kick return game, they do a really nice job, and they got some elite returners there.
Okay, we'll go to Jake Curtis. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, Justin, do you know in your own mind who the starting quarterback is going to be, but you just don't want to let Oregon State know about it?
Well, I don't know, Jake. I do know, Jake. We have a plan, Jake, and maybe we'll talk about it later in the week. Maybe we won't, but we gotta, like a lot of positions, we have to get more consistency there. Sam, last week, the run game, I think offensively, if you look at the game, we took care of the football. We ran it well enough. We had a number of explosive runs called back on penalties, which was very frustrating. Sam had a couple explosive runs that were called back for penalties, things we can control. And so there was some good there. We obviously have to throw the ball more effectively. And, we got to keep working with him and the other quarterbacks and gain more consistency out of that position and other positions. So we'll have a plan. And the guys, we had a good practice today, and we'll put that plan together because we'll need to play really well Saturday against Oregon State.
Okay, we'll go to Michael Wagaman.
Justin, not a question about a specific quarterback, but just the concept last week of having one guy start and be able to play the entire game. Could you tell that had any kind of impact during the game or even watching film, just having just the one guy there from start to finish?
Well, again, we're looking for more consistency at that spot, and we actually had planned to get Fernando some reps in the game. It didn't happen naturally, just by way of how the offense was playing, how the defense was playing, all of that, the field position, kind of everything factored into it. And it wasn't, an indictment on anybody. He had just earned the right to get a shot. So we'll see where all that goes this week. I think ideally you'd like to have a quarterback that kind of takes the lead and takes the job over. We're not quite there yet, and we just got to keep working with those guys. And we have some good players on offense, and we can move the ball, but everybody's got to do their part. Everybody's got to do their job. And as I mentioned before, the penalties that push us back or get us behind the sticks, those are very hard to overcome. We got to do some things better at each position so we play more consistently and don't shoot ourselves in the foot. And like I said, QB is involved in that, but so are some other positions. So all of us have to take ownership in that, coaches and players.
Then we'll go to Matt Moreno from Rivals.
You've talked about self-inflicted mistakes going back to Saturday, and even that kind of during camp that came up a little bit as well. I know it's easier said than done, but how do you kind of go about starting to kind of remedy some of those self-inflicted mistakes?
Well, I'd love to go through a game and say we never have one. I've been doing this, coaching or playing for quite a while now. I have yet to see that game where there hasn't been one, but we've got to minimize them. And not all mistakes are created equal, right? So if you look back at last week, for example, the penalties on offense and then the number of yards that cost us was evident. Those were problems. On defense, it was, I think, three plays cost us about 120 yards and significant points. We had a bust on a man blitz by a young guy. We had a veteran guy make a mistake late in the game on a simple coverage that we've run all camp. And then we had one other coverage issue that they hit us on a crossing route, which should be even if they complete it, we get the ball down. But those three plays were 120 yards. So if we eliminate those and just play good football and make them earn the yards they get, I think we would have played much better on defense, because there were some good moments. We had a bunch of fourth down stops. We took the ball away, created a score. It's the ability to down in and down out, have that same focus, that same communication, that same technique and effort that it takes to play good football. And you got to do it the entire game. And we've got to get better in that regard. And again, we're aiming for perfection. I don't know that we'll ever get there, but we've got to be better about eliminating those type of plays, because those are the ones that, like I said, on defense, that's a difference between playing a really dang good game and one that you don't feel great about, where three kind of controllable errors. So that it's a matter of us doing our job. That's really it.
Okay, we'll go to Thomas Dunn from Radford, California.
Good morning, Justin. Playing Oregon State, it's clear that you're going to have to win the line of scrimmage just to even have a fighting chance against the Beavers. But when it comes to trying to line up against this offense, how difficult will it be for the defense to deal with the way they use their receivers in multiple sets with misdirections, play actions, and even some trick plays?
Yeah, they do a good job. There's a lot of different styles of offense. There's kind of the broken sets, 10 personnel looks. There's the 11 sets with the Y in the backfield that a lot of people use. There's 12 personnel, which Oregon State will use a lot. There's just a number of different ways, and there's good coaches in our conference. Jonathan and Brian and Mahler, Coach Mahalchek, those guys are really good. And ultimately, everybody's going to have a good plan. You don't really go into games in this conference on Saturday and think that the other team doesn't have good scheme. I've been doing this again a while. You don't really ever feel like they don't have good scheme. So these guys will have good scheme, and it's a matter of execution on both sides. And our job is to execute at a very high level, and you're going to have to play physical. You're going to have to be great at the line of scrimmage. We're going to have to tackle well. And when they take their shots, if we get in one-on-one situations, we're going to have to defend some people one-on-one. And that's how you play good football. And it'll be a great challenge for us, and our guys will be excited for it.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a question for the first time around? Yeah, we'll go back to Jeff Parado. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, Justin, a minute ago you were talking about, those just a few plays on defense. You talk about sort of similar stuff offensively. It sounds like consistency is a real theme for you. And is it frustrating that you can play long stretches quite well on both sides of the ball, but these little controllable things are derailing you to some degree?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, Jeff. I mean, I think the frustration comes if you can do better with some kind of simple task, but it's not easy because the game happens quickly. There's different, you can't replicate the game in practice. There might be a young guy in playing outside backer, but he's got to get it. It's our job as coaches to make sure that he gets it. So when we go into the game, that we execute it. Now, is it one thing to get it in the meeting and do it in the walkthrough and do it on a Wednesday practice? Yes, but we have got to be able to carry that over in the game at a high rate. And I think that's the challenge of football. Most times when you come out of the game, I don't care if you're in high school, college, or the NFL, most of the players can say, yeah, this was what I was supposed to do. It's a matter of training your mind and body to be in that moment so you can make that play when it counts. And that's how you execute at a high level. And there is certainly an element. I mean, obviously the physical matchups matter, and you got to win one-on-one. To play great football, you're going to have to win one-on-ones, but you can play really pretty good if you eliminate some of these controllable errors that we've seen. So offense, defense, and special teams, it showed up, and we're going to keep harping on it. We're going to hold the guys to a very high standard, and we expect them to hold themselves and their teammates to a high standard as well.
Yeah, if I can follow up with a slightly different topic, getting back to Sam Jackson, a lot of the focus on him, both with yourself and even with him, was been decision making. I'm wondering what you thought of his decision making in this game, or was it mostly an issue of just he wasn't as accurate as he needs to be?
Well, he's improving, Jeff. He's we can still utilize his run game even more. We maybe had a couple missed opportunities there on some pull reads. You did see on a couple that unfortunately got called back, where you see what happens when we get him out on the perimeter and he can make some plays with his feet. There was some opportunities in the pass game that we'd probably like to have back. And I think Sam, and he'd probably tell you the same, he just, as he's growing as a quarterback, he just got to slow down a little bit. And I think he's getting more comfortable with what he's seeing and the reads he's supposed to make. And now it's kind of let the play develop and not be in such a hurry. And I think he maybe mentioned it. We were talking about it. Sometimes it's like he's in fast forward. So if we can just kind of make that game feel a little bit more like practice and kind of slow the game down for him. And, there's no magic in that. It's just repetitions, and you got to keep working through it. But I think both the run game and pass game, there was still more to be had this past Saturday on offense.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go back to Steve Croner.
Hey, Justin, kind of a big picture question, if I might. A lot of people are talking about, look, you do have a daunting 5 weeks. You're playing 5 straight ranked teams. But I think there's also a perception that, I don't think people quite are giving you guys the right amount of respect that if you look at, and I'm getting kind of lost here, but if you look at the Auburn Georgia game last week, and Auburn, a team you guys probably should have beaten, came close to beating the #1 team in the nation. Do you bring that up with your players? Do you think you just have to tell them, hey, we are good enough to be on this stage, or does that not need to be mentioned?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I see what you're saying. Yeah, that was obviously a disappointing loss, and we had to learn hard lessons from that game. And I think when you put the tape on, that really tells the story, because whether it's that game or this past week or even the Washington game, if you just look at what we have control over and, the ability we have some good players, we have to operate at a higher clip. And again, yeah, we're aiming for perfection. Will we get there? I don't know, but we just have to do a better job of eliminating some of these things that they're not real complicated. I'm not saying that it's easy, because the game is hard. The other team's got good players and good schemes too, but that's what we got to do. And we just don't need to make the game so hard. Sometimes we're making easy things hard right now, and we don't need to. And some of that is some, newer guys and younger guys and maybe playing together. I'm confident we can fix it. But that's where we're at right now. We just got to play much more efficient, and it's our job as coaches to help the players get there. And it's the players' job, if they know what to do, how to do it, then we hold them accountable to getting that job done.
Okay, we'll go to Michael Jorgensen from Cal Athletics.
Hi, Coach. Wanted to ask about Caleb Elarms-Orr. Last year, coming back from injury, didn't have one tackle playing on special teams. This year, he's the second leading tackler in the Pac-12. At what point did you sort of realize he was going to be an impact player this season, and how would you describe the way he's been able to impact games for the defense?
Yeah, he's made a huge jump in the past year. It's a credit to him and Peter Sermon for teaching that guy how to play linebacker. Because a year ago, I think I've said this before, he was a long way away. So you never quite know because so much of it is dependent on their physical ability and their mental makeup. I think Caleb is still, he has some things that he's got to get better at. Some of the things that, and what you want to see is eliminate, not making the same mistake twice. And so we're going to continue to work with him on that. And I think the more he plays, the more the game, may again slow down for him and find the ball even more than he does, because he has some really, really good physical tools. He's explosive, he's fast, he's tough. But playing behind the line of scrimmage and getting used to seeing things and the instincts of that position, I think we'll see where that ceiling is. We don't know yet, but it's a credit to him in his offseason and how he approached workouts, meetings. He put a ton of time into this. And then again, a credit to Peter for bringing him, that far, that fast is very, very impressive. So it's not like he's arrived, but he's sure making a lot of tackles, and we expect him to because he has the ability to do that.
Okay, we'll go back to Jeff Verano.
Yeah, that was actually, I was going to ask you about Caleb as well, but another question related to him is, can you see a change in his confidence level now that he's started to play a lot more and started to have a lot more production, as you said?
Yeah, I didn't take him for a guy that was, nervous or lacking confidence, but certainly if you haven't played, you got to get in there, and the experience is the best teacher. So he's gotten some experience. Again, he had a play last week that honestly gave up an explosive pass, and so we've got to clean that up. And I think he can. He has the ability to do these things. We always kind of talk about we're going to hold those players. We're going to be fair to them, but it's not always the same because guys have different levels of ability. And Caleb has a really high ceiling, and we're going to, push him, continue to push him to reach that ceiling. And so I know he's gaining confidence because he is producing, and I hope, like we do, sees that he's not close to his ceiling. And if he reaches it, then he could be a really good player. But he's still young and he's still learning. But it's great to be learning when you're having that much production.
And in your system defensively, a lot seems to sort of be funneled to those two inside linebackers. That's been the position that's compiled huge numbers over the years. Is it then up to the player to sort of fulfill that and be able to take advantage of that opportunity?
Yeah, Jeff, I've heard that before. I think somebody said that a couple years ago, but I have never seen a system where the linebackers shouldn't make tackles. I have never seen one or heard one taught where the linebackers shouldn't make tackles. That's their job. The inside linebacker's job is production is paramount. They come in different shapes and sizes, and they're not all the same. So we would expect those guys to be productive. I think Peter Sermon's done an unbelievable job since he's been here of getting production out of those guys. If you just think about the Kanashik and Weaver the first year, and then it was Weaver and Coin Dang, and then it was who was after that. We've had production at that position every single year with different people, and then it's really a matter of how talented are they? What's their ceiling? And some of those guys are still playing, some aren't. One of the guys is the defensive player of the year in the conference, but you would expect inside linebackers to produce, but I think that's every system. I just haven't seen one where the linebackers aren't supposed to make tackles.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Maria Koladova from Rivals.
Morning, Coach. I was wondering if we could get an update on the injuries, maybe Taj Davis, Ethan Saunders, and maybe how Justin Williams Thomas is doing in practice.
Yeah. Okay. Taj is back in practice and cleared to go. So we're expecting him to play. Ethan is day-to-day. And who else did you mention? Justin Williams Thomas is practicing. And I would say week to week at this point. I don't know that he would be ready for this weekend. And to be honest, even if he's ready, there's some other guys ahead of him right now.
Okay, does anybody else have a question or final question for Coach? Actually, it's like Jeff has another one. Go ahead, Jeff.
Can you talk briefly about Javin Thomas? And you've used him quite sparingly, but he's been super effective for you so far. What are you seeing and what are you liking? And what does he have to do besides the fact that you got a lot of productive guys here? What does he have to do to be a bigger part of things?
Keep doing what he's doing. We believe in Javin, and I think he's fast, and we're going to find different ways to incorporate him in the offense. The other thing I really like about him is he's competitive and he's tough, man. Like that kid is tough. He got dinged up a little bit in camp, and he was back in a day and a half, it seemed like. So he wants to play. It's important to him. I like his demeanor. He is not the biggest guy in the world, and that's okay. Because if he's tough like that and he can run like that, then we can find ways for him to help the team.